This is my business card.
For your operation out of your garage.
Yeah, this number's still not in progress. I'd be curious to know if that number still works.
Right.
But it was Ecko airbrushing.
Yeah.
So emo. I've always been really emo. Like underneath it all, people, you know, underneath like the bravado, I'm still very emotional. Right. You know, my hair is should be 3 times the length, and like life is about passion hunting.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really corny. It sounds heavy-handed, but I'm yet to find a better meaning for it.
Everyone in some capacity knows Marc Ecko. Maybe you've seen the recognizable Rhino logo in your local mall. Maybe you've seen some of his other brands like Zoo York, Averex, or 50 Cent's G-Unit collection. Maybe you occasionally read his magazine Complex. You might have played his video game or voted on what to do with Barry Bonds' home run record ball. And you've probably seen the infamous YouTube clip of the president's airplane apparently being tagged by Marc in the middle of the night. I've been a fan of Ecko for a long time now, first as a consumer, then as a fellow business owner. I was first drawn to the company's keen design eye and level of detail, and not to mention, his company is fast approaching the $1 billion mark. Marc and I first met a while ago, back when his headquarters was inside of a school in South River, New Jersey. Today, his immaculate Midtown Manhattan office is a setting for this one-to-one.
It's like, I love the positive reinforcement I got from my family.
Right.
You know, that even though it might have been on a napkin, it was like a big deal. It was a skill set that I had that other family members or friends didn't necessarily have.
Right.
So it kind of defined, they bigged me
Yeah.
up, and you can't underestimate the value in that. That was enough for me to kind of like, all right, build off of. In 7th and 8th grade is probably when I started to really articulate the desire to want to make this entrepreneurial. When I would go to the Route 1 flea market, I guess that's North Brunswick, New Jersey, there would be like the airbrush guy, the airbrush stand. And I found that really cool. And when I would travel into either Trenton or Philly for family, or into Manhattan and then into the boroughs of Manhattan to visit family, I would see all the elevated trains, freight trains, and see graffiti. Right. So airbrushing, the aesthetic of airbrushing was, kind of like the kissing cousin, or really like this, maybe the stepchild of graffiti. Right. And I knew it around 8th grade, that's what I wanted to do. You go back to these books, especially this book, it's kind of embarrassing, this stuff. But, but it's a little naive, but it's honest. You go back to, this stuff is in the 80s. I graduated high school in 1990, but I would do all this stuff for my friends, and it's very naive, very, very, very naive. Like I'd have like a Nefertiti stencil. I must have done like 1,000 Nefertitis, But
free James Brown. Yeah,
lots of free James Browns, black Bart Simpsons,
Right.
But for sure, that was the vibe, man, and that for me became it became the narrative. It became, for me, like the yellow brick road was paved, and it was I could see it.
Was there ever a time you got up and you were like, that's it, there's going to be no more Ecko Unlimited?
Oh, sure. There are many times. I mean, I'd probably say, you know what it is? Because it's more money, more problems. When the business started to scale, and you got to be careful what you wish for, right? The business starts to grow, and you start to get to critical mass. One of the big things that happened to me was we didn't register our trademarks properly. Okay, the spelling of my name was E-C-H-O. Right. I was going as E-C-H-O, right, with like a long mark over there. That was my thing. And I've been Ecko since my mother gave me the nickname. I have a twin sister, right? So I came second. That's the backstory. Corny but true, right? So when I got that cease and desist letter from the company Ecko Design Group, started by a gentleman by the name of Edward C. Hyman, ECH, that's the acronym Ecko, right? Where they started that company, rightfully so, 85 years ago, right? And do the due diligence of registering the trademark. They had every right to tell me to stop. But when they told me, like, who the fuck are they? Yeah. I'm Marc Ecko. I'm Ecko. I'm the real Ecko. What? Fuck that. Yeah. That was painful. That was a painful experience. That coupled with all the mess that I managed to make for myself, with all those pursuits of bad production, I got myself about $7-8 million in debt. It was just bad times, man. It was bad times all around.
So that's where you were thinking.
And that was one of those moments where it was like, make the wolves go away. Every event I went to, every party I went to, every trade show, I owed someone in the room money. And there have been occasions in my career where, I think we're programmed that way. It's just human code. Like, you're programmed that way. We have feelings, you know? And it's hard to remove the emotion from the business, right? But even as you grow, you have you even though you try to not become emotionally vulnerable, it's hard. You know, it's hard not to become emotionally attached to something.
Right.
But it's important to be able to discern and not let that stuff take you off course. I have this thing, I call it like nostalgia paralysis, right? And my theory is that people are paralyzed over the past.
Yeah.
Nostalgia and the romance of the past paralyzes them, okay? And it becomes crippling.
Yeah.
And you see it in industry, you see it in the arts, you see it in culture, where the way things were, or the rules that were assigned by the thought leaders of that space, is how you must conduct business. I'm the dude that likes to unplug that whole shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's my shit. You know, like, that's my thing. And sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm wrong. But I could, look, I'll just pick myself up, you know, wipe it off, and just keep it moving.
Right.
So.
That's a good way to end it.
Yeah, bro.